Perhaps you will be surprised, even shocked, to hear this. Everything you have ever been taught about asking of God is a foundation for perpetual disappointment. For you have been instructed to stand as a beggar before a distant throne, pleading for the scraps of a reluctant universe. This very mindset of lack and separation is the very obstacle that prevents your receiving. We come together not to repeat these weary formulas, but to penetrate the truth behind the great and often misunderstood promise. We must undertake a radical examination of what it means to ask, and more importantly, who it is that asks. We shall uncover why the outer plea so often fails, and discover the inner receptive silence where true fulfillment is already established. Prepare to look beyond the words to the living spirit of the law, for what you will discover here will transform seeking into finding, and asking into the joyous acknowledgement of a gift already given. Let us delve directly into this crucial error, for it is the very bedrock of our frustration. Consider how you have been taught to approach this principle. From childhood, you are conditioned to believe you are an isolated self, a separate entity living in a world of scarce resources. You look out at a universe that appears to hold everything you do not have, health you lack, wealth you desire, relationships you crave, peace that eludes you. From this place of perceived emptiness, you are instructed to formulate a request. You are told to ask, and so you do. You kneel, you whisper, you list your needs with hopeful desperation, projecting your plea outward toward a divine power. You imagine as separate from yourself a cosmic benefactor who must be persuaded, pleased, or placated. This entire framework, though seemingly spiritual, is built upon the foundation of a beggar. A beggar operates from an unshakable consciousness of lack. His entire being proclaims, I am without. You have. Please give from your abundance to my emptiness. Now, translate this into your own silent prayers. Is the feeling not the same? I am sick. Make me well. I am poor. Provide for me. I am lonely. Send me companionship. The posture is one of standing outside the house of fulfillment, knocking on a door, hoping someone inside will hear and open. The power, the agency, the very substance of what you need, is perceived as being entirely elsewhere. This mindset does not engage with spiritual law. It reinforces the illusion of separation, which is the only barrier to the experience of harmony. You see, this beggar consciousness is not neutral. It is an active, creative state. It is a prayer in itself, but a prayer for more lack. By affirming your emptiness, your need, your separation from good, you are powerfully decreeing that reality into continued expression. Your life then becomes a perfect demonstration of your deepest conviction that you are a subject begging from an object. The universe, which operates on consciousness, can only echo back to you the essence of your own feeling. It gives you not what you verbally request, but what you inwardly are, the experience of being a beggar, which is the experience of perpetual want. Think of your daily life. You desire a greater sense of security. From the beggar standpoint, you fixate on the bank statement, the job market, the unstable world. Your prayer is born of anxiety. Please, let me keep my job. Please, let this money come. The entire energy is one of fear and contraction, a subtle trembling before a hostile or uncertain universe. Or perhaps it is companionship you seek. The beggar's plea comes from a heart-touch of loneliness, emphasizing your isolation, scanning the world for someone to complete you. In both cases, the starting point is the painful absence of the thing desired. You are, in truth, asking to feel the lack more acutely until some external force decides to relieve it. This is why such asking feels exhausting and often yields more of the same anxious, lonely vibration. The shocking truth we must confront is that the spiritual universe does not respond to laundry lists of needs arising from a sense of deprivation. It responds to identity. It manifests the quality of consciousness that is knowing itself. A wave begging the ocean for wetness will never find satisfaction, for it is already constituted of the very substance it seeks. Your feeling of being a deprived, separate entity is the only obstacle. The principle, ask and you shall receive, is not an invitation to petition, but a divine imperative to know your own nature. The asking that works is not the outcry of the beggar, but the quiet, inward turning of the child who already knows its home and its inheritance. So we must dismantle this inner statue of the beggar. We must cease from approaching the infinite as if it were a capricious monarch. The shift is from, give me what I do not have, to, reveal what I already am. The prayer transforms from a plea into a recognition. Instead of standing outside in the cold of lack, you are called to realize you are already within the warmth of the house. All that is required is to become still, to let the clamor of personal wants subside, and in that silence, to become aware of the presence that is your very own being. This presence is not poor, not sick, not lonely. It is the substance of all form, the intelligence of all action, the love of all union. When your consciousness rests here, even for a moment, you are no longer asking as a beggar. You are abiding as the hare, and from that standpoint, what appears as receiving in the outer world is merely the inevitable adjustment of circumstances to conform to the truth of your realized identity. The bread you sought was already on your own table. You had only to open your eyes within your own house. This brings us to the heart of the confusion, the pivotal misstep that turns a divine promise into a human frustration. For if we cease to be beggars, what is it we approach? The common imagination paints a picture of a divine provider, a supreme being who distributes gifts from a vast storehouse, deciding who is worthy, who must wait, and who will be denied. This is the ultimate projection of the beggar's reality. It is a relationship of transaction, bartering prayers for prizes, good behavior for rewards. We must dismantle this image entirely, for it is an illusion that obscures the breathtaking truth. God is not a provider. A provider stands apart from the provision. A provider chooses, assesses, and delivers from a separate source. This concept keeps you forever in the anxious state of a hopeful applicant awaiting a decision. Instead, we must come to understand God as the very substance of the fulfillment itself. God is not the hand that gives the bread. God is the bread. God is not the architect who designs the home. God is the very substance of shelter, peace, and belonging out of which the form of a home appears. God is not the healer who mends the body from the outside. God is the infinite, intelligent life, principle that is the actual substance and reality of your being. To ask this life, principle for life, is a redundancy. To ask this all presence for presence is to miss what already is. Consider the sun. Does the sun provide light? No, the sun is light. Its very nature is to shine, to emanate, to be the essence of illumination. A flower in a dark room does not beg the sun to provide a beam of light. It turns naturally toward the source, and by its very orientation, it is bathed in what the sun is. Your good is not a commodity to be shipped from a distant heaven. It is the very nature of the divine presence, here and now, as the reality of all that is. Your anxiety about a financial need, for instance, stems from seeing money as a separate object you lack in God, as a separate being who might supply it. But what if the need is not truly for printed currency, but for the consciousness of security, intelligence, right action, and unfoldment? Those qualities are not things God has. They are what God is. As you come into alignment with that presence, the human scene must reorganize to express that security and intelligence, often in ways you could not have outlined as a beggar with a specific request. Think of your longing for peace in a chaotic situation. The beggar prays, "Please, God, take this chaos away. Provide me with peace." This assumes peace is absent, and God must intervene to impose it upon the turbulent scene. But what if God is the very substance of peace itself, a living, vibrant stillness at the core of your being that has never been disturbed? The shift is not from chaos to peace, but from the Ah's belief in chaos to the I's awareness of the omnipresent peace that is your true nature. You are not asking a provider to give you something. You are turning your attention from the storm to the sun and discovering you have always been standing in its light. This understanding revolutionizes every pursuit. In seeking companionship, you are not asking a cosmic matchmaker to send a person. You are realizing that the divine is the very substance of love, union, and complete relating. As your consciousness rests in that reality, as you let go of the desperate hunger of the beggar and abide in the fullness of love itself, you become a transparency through which harmonious relationship naturally and inevitably forms. The form it takes will be perfect, for it emerges from the wholeness of the principle, not from the limited checklist of your personal desire. Therefore, your entire endeavor changes from seeking to receiving, but receiving in a new sense. It is not the hand catching a tossed coin. It is the plant receiving the sunlight by the very nature of its being turned toward it. You receive by being in a state of conscious union with the reality you seek. Health is received by knowing yourself as the expression of indivisible life, not by begging life to invade a sick body. Supply is received by knowing yourself as the embodiment of infinite substance, ceaselessly forming and reforming to express its own abundance. You are not negotiating with a provider. You are waking up to the fact that what you have always sought, you already are. The appearance of lack in your world is not a decree from a withholding God. It is the shadow cast when you have turned away from the light of your own being. The asking that works is the gentle, persistent turning back. Having glimpsed that God is the fulfillment and not a separate provider, we are brought to the most critical, the most personal point of examination. We must now ask a startling question: who, then, is the one who asks? You have assumed it is you, this person with a name, a history, a collection of desires and fears, this personal sense of self, this that feels lack and formulates petitions, is precisely the Oscar that has been failing. This separate ego, this bundle of reactions and memories, cannot truly receive from the infinite because it is itself the dream of separation. Its very existence is a declaration of independence from the source it now begs from. This is the great spiritual paradox we must unravel. Consider the you that sits down to pray for patience in a trying situation. Who is that? It is likely a feeling of tension, a mind replaying grievances, a body humming with frustration. That you is saying, I am impatient. Please give me patience. But can impatience ask for patience? Can darkness ask for light? It can only ask for the absence of itself, which is a confession of its own reality as a blocking agent. The personal self, the egoic mind, is a configuration of such limitations. It is a false center, a mirage of identity that believes it lives independently within its own fortress of thoughts and feelings. Its every request is tainted by this foundational belief. It asks for abundance from a place of deeply felt poverty. It asks for love from a place of carefully guarded loneliness. Its asking is, therefore, a reinforcement of the very state it wishes to escape. This is why your most heartfelt personal prayers can seem to go unanswered. You are, in essence, a character in a play writing a petition to the playwright to change the story, all the while believing utterly in the reality of your character's plight. The playwright cannot answer the character, for the character is not real. The answer can only come when the actor remembers his true identity off the stage. The true asker is not the character. The true asker is the awareness in which the character appears. It is the silent, witnessing presence that is reading these words right now, before thought labels it, before emotion claims it. It is the I am that is prior to I am poor or I am sick. This is yourself, capital S. This is the Christ, the Buddha nature, the divine spark. This self does not ask because it knows no lack. It knows. It is the very substance of the fulfillment. Your daily life offers clear proofs of this. When you are utterly absorbed in a creative task, lost in a moment of beauty in nature, or feeling a surge of genuine compassion, what happens to that needy, calculating personal self? It vanishes. In those moments, you are not the beggar asker. You are pure experiencing. And note in those instants, do you lack anything? Is there any sense of petition or want? No. There is only a profound fullness, a sense of being exactly where and what you are meant to be. That is because, for a moment, the noisy personal ego has receded, and you are abiding as the true self, which is forever complete. The peace or joy you feel is not something given to you. It is what you are when the illusion of the separate asker is stripped away. Therefore, the spiritual journey is the gradual, sometimes abrupt, transfer of identity from the personal asker to the divine self. Prayer ceases to be an activity of the ego and becomes the practice of this remembrance. You do not ask from your problems. You ask through them to the reality behind them. When anxiety about the future arises, instead of the personal I begging for security, there can be a gentle turning inward with the question, what is the I that is aware of this anxiety? This does not analyze the anxiety. It shifts attention to the space in which the anxiety is known. That space is the true you. It is the open, receptive, intelligent presence that is the canvas for all thoughts and feelings. Abating there, even briefly, is the only authentic asking. It is asking by becoming the answer. It is the wave stilling its frantic motion to realize it is ocean. From that standpoint, whatever adjustment is needed in the outward circumstances will proceed with an intelligence, and grace the personal mind could never have orchestrated, for it flows from the wholeness of your being, not from the fragmentation of your wants. This understanding of the true asker revolutionizes the very meaning of the word ask. It can no longer be seen as a verbal plea sent outward. That is the action of the ego, the beggar. The asking that opens the floodgates of spiritual realization is an entirely inward motion. It is a silent, profound turning of attention from the problem to the presence, from the effect to the cause, from the world of appearance to the kingdom of reality within. It is not asking for something, but asking into something. It is the relentless orientation of your entire consciousness toward the divine reality until that reality alone occupies the center of your awareness. And in that moment, the asking dissolves into pure knowing. This is asking as an inward realization. Think of it not as speaking, but as listening, not as projecting a want, but as receiving an is-ness. The personal self is a fountain of thought and demand, a constant mental chatter outlining its conditions for happiness. This inward realization is the cessation of that noise in order to hear the eternal hum of being. It is the difference between shouting across a canyon for an echo and becoming still enough to hear the profound silence that holds the very sound of the canyon itself. In that silence, something is realized. You realize you are not the shouter. You are the spacious awareness that contains both the shout and the echo. This realization is the answered prayer, for it is the direct experience of wholeness. Let this move from the abstract to the concrete reality of your day. You face a difficult conversation, one you dread. The personal self, the false asker, is already busy. It is rehearsing arguments, fearing outcomes, asking from a place of tension. Please, let this go smoothly. Don't let them be angry. This asking is rooted in the story of two separate egos in conflict. It has no power but to tighten the knot. Now, apply asking as an inward realization. Before the conversation, you become still. You consciously withdraw the energy fueling the fearful story. You turn attention away from the mental movie of the other person and the problem. You turn it inward, not to analyze your fear, but to anchor in the I am that is aware of all this. You might silently affirm, Thy presence is here. Thy peace is the substance of this moment. This is not a mantra to change the other person. It is a wrenching of your own consciousness away from the storm and into the sun. You are asking to realize the truth of peace right now, in the midst of the apparent turmoil. You are not begging for a future peaceful outcome. You are sinking into the present reality of peace as your own being. From that centered stillness, you enter the conversation. The words you speak may or may not be different, but they will emanate from a different source, from realization, not from reaction. And the outcome will be an expression of that source, often in ways that will astound the personal mind, which could only conceive of victory or defeat, or consider a moment of physical pain. The ego's ask is a frantic, take this away, make it stop. It is a rejection of the present moment, a battle against sensation, which only amplifies the suffering by adding mental resistance to physical signal. Asking as realization takes a different path. It involves a gentle, almost scientific turning of attention. You feel the pain, yes. But you then ask inward, what is aware of this sensation? You do not focus on the pain's location or intensity. You focus on the vast, aware space in which the pain is appearing. You seek to realize the nature of the knower, not the known. In doing so, a separation occurs. You are no longer identified as the pain. You are the awareness that knows it. This does not always magically erase the sensation, though it can, but it utterly transforms your relationship to it. The suffering, which is the ego's resistance to the pain, dissolves. You have realized a peace and a stability that are prior to and untouched by the changing condition of the body. You have asked and received not the removal of the condition, but the liberating awareness of your wholeness beyond it. This is the pearl of great price. This is the sacred art. It is the moment-by-moment choice to turn from the outer panorama of effects, the bank statement, the diagnosis, the relationship discord, and to direct the full force of your attention inward to the cause, to the living presence that is your life. You are not repeating words to change God's mind. You are practicing the presence of God until your own mind is changed, until it is utterly convinced of the reality it beholds within. That conviction, that realized consciousness, is the only creative power. It touches the human scene and transforms it, not by miracle, but by the natural, inevitable law that the outer must conform to the inner. The landscape of your life is a shadow cast by the substance of your consciousness. Asking as realization is the process of turning to face the light itself until the shadow is seen for what it is and the world is reborn from the inside out. But this inward turning, this sacred art of realization, meets its most stubborn and subtle adversary, the personal desire. This is the barrier so cunning, so woven into the fabric of our very approach, that it can corrupt even our most sincere moments of prayer. We have moved from the beggar's cry to a deeper form of asking. Yet if this asking is secretly freighted with a specific, personal outcome, a hidden agenda for how fulfillment must look, we have merely dressed the beggar in finer robes. The barrier of personal desire is not the desire for good itself. It is the insistence that the infinite, omnipresent reality conform to the tiny, time-bound picture painted by the personal mind. It is the ego's final attempt to remain the architect of salvation. Understand this clearly. The personal desire is always for a thing, an event, a specific change in the panorama. It says, I want this job, this person, this amount of money, this exact resolution to my problem. It is attached to form. The spiritual principle, however, deals solely in the realm of consciousness, of substance, of being. Its answer is always a state peace, wholeness, intelligence, harmony, love. When you ask from a personal desire, you are essentially saying to the infinite, I know exactly what I need. Here is the form it must take. Now, fill my order. You are trying to direct the ocean with a teaspoon. The ocean cannot be directed. It can only be realized as your own native element, and then its currents carry you perfectly. This is why you can engage in deep meditation, touch a moment of stillness, and yet feel your situation remain stuck. Look closely. Was there, lurking beneath the surface, a subtle transaction? Were you, in truth, practicing the silence in order to get the job, heal the body, or attract the partner? The moment your spiritual practice becomes a means to a personal end, you have stepped out of the state of grace and back into the workshop of the ego. You are using the truth as a tool, and truth cannot be used. It can only be lived. The desire for a specific outcome is like a cloud passing before the sun. It does not affect the sun, but it creates the experience of shadow for the one who identifies with the cloud. Let this become visible in your daily experience. You seek a new home. The personal desire fixates on a particular neighborhood, a square footage, a price point. It crafts an image, and then, from a place of lacking that image, it prays, it affirms, it tries to manifest. This effort is fraught with anxiety because it is an attempt to control an uncontrollable universe from a standpoint of ignorance. You cannot know if that specific house, in that specific area, is the form through which your deepest need for shelter, security, and joy will be perfectly expressed. The barrier is the attachment to the form. Now, shift to the real asking, turn inward, and realize the consciousness of home. What is that? It is a sense of belonging, of safety, of being centered and at peace wherever you are. It is the feeling of, I am at home in the universe right now. Abide in that state as your realized truth. From that consciousness, you are guided, often in unexpected ways. You may be led to a home different from your picture, but perfectly suited to your soul's unfoldment. Or the desired home may come, but it will come as a natural effect of your inner state, not as the hard, one trophy of your personal desire. The striving is gone, replaced by a gracious receiving. This is the critical purification. It requires a terrifying, glorious surrender. It means releasing your grip on the how and the what, and placing your entire faith in the I am. You must be willing for the fulfillment to take a form you never imagined. Your personal desire for a reconciliation with a specific person must dissolve into the realized consciousness of love itself, which may heal the relationship or may bring a deeper peace that transcends it. Your desire for a specific financial outcome must be consumed in the fire of realizing yourself as the very substance of abundance, which may express through the expected channel or may open a door you never knew existed. The barrier, therefore, is your own plan. It is the secret contract you have written for God to sign. Tear up the contract. The asking that works is the abandonment of all specific pictures. It is the courage to stand before the infinite with empty hands and a wide, open heart, saying in effect, I desire only to know thy presence. I desire only to realize what I am in thee. Let that realization express as it will in my life. This is not passivity. It is the ultimate activity of the soul, aligning completely with the source and then becoming a clear, unobstructed channel through which its infinite possibilities can flow into form, unhindered by the narrow dictates of a frightened personal will. The personal desire is the static on the line. This surrendered realization is the clear reception of the signal, and the music that follows is always a perfect expression of the composer, not the limited request of the listener. And so we arrive at the ultimate practice, the sacred space where asking ceases and receiving is all that remains. This is not a passive waiting, but the most dynamic state of consciousness you will ever know. It is called entering the silence of receiving. After the beggar has been seen through, after God is known as fulfillment itself, after the true self is acknowledged as the only asker, after asking becomes inward realization and personal desire is surrendered, what is left? A profound, alert, and pregnant quiet. This silence is not an empty void. It is a fullness so complete that it has no need for sound. It is the stillness of the ocean depths, undisturbed by the storm on the surface. In this silence, you are not doing anything to get. You are being everything to receive. You are tuning the instrument of your consciousness to the frequency of the eternal broadcast, which is forever transmitting wholeness, peace, and infinite solution. Think of your mind as a cup constantly being stirred by the spoons of thought, worry, planning, and memory. The water is murky, turbulent. You have been trying to pour the fresh water of spiritual truth into this agitated cup, but it only mixes with the chaos, becoming indistinguishable. Entering the silence is the act of setting the cup down. It is the conscious, deliberate cessation of all that mental stirring. You let the thoughts settle. You watch them without following them. You withdraw your identity from the thinker and rest as the awareness that watches the thinking. In that settling, the sediment sinks. The water becomes clear, still, and reflective. And in that clarity, something miraculous happens. The water already in the cup reveals its true nature. It was always pure, clear H2O. The agitation was the only problem. You do not fill the cup from the outside. You realize the cup is already full of the very substance you sought. Once the false elements settle out, this stillness is the act of receiving what has always been present. You can bring this into any moment of your day, especially those moments of acute pressure. The deadline is looming, and the mind is a riot of frantic planning and fear. The personal desire is screaming for a specific outcome. This is the moment to stop. Not to stop working outwardly, but to stop the inner turbulence. You close your eyes if you can, or simply direct attention inward behind the eyes. You take a conscious breath, not to relax the body, but as a signal of intent. I am withdrawing from the storm. You let the thoughts about the deadline be there, but you refuse to board the train of panic. You anchor instead in the feeling of being the aware space that contains the deadline, the project, the fear. You abide there. You do not ask for an idea. You become still enough for the idea to surface from the depths of that silence. This is receiving intelligence. The solution that comes will have a quality of effortless rightness, a coherence that frantic thinking could never achieve. You have not manufactured an answer. You have received it from the infinite creative mind that you are. Or consider a moment of grief or heartache. The personal self wants to analyze the loss, replay the past, or demand a different future. The asking is a cry of pain. To enter the silence of receiving here is an act of profound courage. It means to feel the raw sensation without the story. It means to sink into the very core of the feeling and discover what is there when the labels of my sorrow and my loss are suspended. In that deep quiet, beneath the waves of emotion, you may touch a bedrock of peace that is not personal at all. It is a universal, compassionate presence that holds all sorrow and transcends it. You are not receiving comfort as a thing. You are realizing yourself as the very substance of comfort. The healing that flows from this is not the erasure of memory, but the transfiguration of your relationship to it. You receive a grace that transforms the wound into a witness to something eternal. This silence is the point of contact. It is where the wave knows itself as ocean. In practical terms, you cultivate it not by adding a new activity, but by a consistent, gentle subtraction. You subtract your commentary on life. You subtract your frantic mental manipulation of circumstances. You subtract your timeline for results. You sit daily, not to achieve a spiritual experience, but to let the false sense of achiever dissolve. You listen not for a voice, but for the silence that underlies all voice. In that quiet, a knowing arises. It is not intellectual. It is a certainty in the bones of your being. It is the knowledge that you are one with the source, and that all form must spring from that unity. From this silence Action may proceed, words may be spoken, decisions may be made, but they are now movements of the whole, not the struggles of a part. The outer world, which seems so stubborn, now adjusts itself around this newfound center of gravity. What you needed was never something to be grabbed, but a reality to be realized in the unshakable quiet at the heart of your own being. When you reside there, you are perpetually receiving, for you are perpetually in the presence of the gift, which is your own divine self, endlessly expressing itself as the unfolding story of your life.